Is that up? Yes, it is. Uh, okay, let me just test the volume real quick. If this is live, I'm sorry, everyone. It's been a while I've done this. Alright, it's actually up and running. Awesome. Hello, Internet. My name is Headphones, or Underwolf, either one really. So what I'm going to be doing tonight, I'm trying to get back into doing online streaming, and I'm actually experimenting a little tonight. I'm going to be trying to use... And it crashed, of course it did. But yeah, instead of drawing and talking at the same time, I'm going to try to use a video of me drawing while talking. Because when I try to draw and talk at the same time... Yeah. Sorry. God damn it, YouTube. DVR, low latency. Yeah, bear with me, people. Nah, forget it. This is probably the best I'll be able to do. Yeah, what I want to start doing is I want to start streaming my artwork, start streaming my process, so that can help me improve on how I'm doing it. And I also really do enjoy talking about movies or cartoons or all forms of pop culture and media. Not politics. I do not talk about politics. But again, so what tonight I'm doing, I'm going to be trying to use a pre-recorded video of me drawing the photo, and then I'll be doing the dialogue piece live. Then hopefully tomorrow night, if not tomorrow night, Saturday night, I'm going to try the opposite, where I will have a pre-recorded dialogue and I'll be doing the drawing part live. And tonight I'm going to be talking about the new Pokemon movie that came out that was a Fathom event, Pokemon I Choose You. And I'm going to be covering all the aspects I feel are important. I'm going to cover the basic plot, what I thought of it, the good, the bad, then all the little nitpicky stuff. And if you're watching, if you have a YouTube account, feel free to comment in the chat below, assuming that's active. Again, it's been... Geez, I think it's been like 5 months since I've actually done this. So, I'm a little rusty on how the YouTube one works. Yeah, please do comment. Let me know what you think. I'd love for this to be an interactive thing. That's one reason I'm doing it this way instead of drawing and talking live, because then I'd be too distracted to actually read the comments. I won't actually notice people at first. But again, what I'm drawing tonight is a picture or a mere composition of 3 Pokemon I drew for the movie. But can't talk. And and I'm just gonna get into the movie now. So, oh hey Nate, I'm assuming that's you. Say hi to Nate, everyone. But yeah, anyway, getting distracted too much. So I've seen Pokemon the movie. It was a Fathom event. Had 4 screenings. It'll be out on DVD soon, if not already. Because I've been to Fathom events before where they do direct-to-video films, and it's typically the night before it comes out. But this was a 4-night event, not a 1, so I'm merely assuming. Oh yeah, it is, Nate. You guys can read the comments too, I'm assuming. Unless you're watching the video itself, not the live stream. Which case I'm a huge prick right now. But anyway. So, the basic plot is, this is essentially the first season of Pokemon, but set to an Elseworld or an alternate universe parallel. So it's still Ash and Pikachu going on the same adventure, but it does diverge and differ in a lot of ways. And the basic plot is, it expands on the first episode where Ash sees Ho-Oh. And there's a story arc on that of him and his new friends, I'll get to that in a second, just hunting down the mythical Pokemon. And it's very important to note that I did enjoy this movie, and I think a lot of fans of Pokemon should be able to enjoy it, but it's more than likely audiences will be split, to say none the least. Because, like I stated earlier, it does diverge from the actual show. It's its own entity, it's its own reality, and you have to go in accepting that and expecting there to be a lot different. Because, hang on. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to do other things too, because I'm not good at time management. That's another advantage to doing this stream, this method. Getting sidetracked, sorry. But no. So back on topic, something very important to note, that it does diverge drastically to the point where most people will probably be off-put if this is something they're just coming into, and it will be an okay introduction to the series, but not the best, because I'll start getting into that now. So the main plot, very basic, which Pokemon, I'd kind of expect that. And the main character, Ash and Pikachu, are from the original series. But he has two friends this time who, traditionally, in the Kanto region, or the first season, which this is loosely based on, he had two friends, Brock and Misty. However, in this movie, he's never met them, and we have, instead, two different characters. So instead of Brock and Misty, we have a girl from, I want to say Twinleaf Town, named Verity, and a boy named Sorrel. I forget where he's from, but, well, Sorrel is from the Hoenn region, and Verity is from the Sinnoh region, which, again, I feel that's actually a very wise change, because one of the problems, although this is probably more of a nitpick, is that the original show came before all the follow-ups and all the sequels, and if you aren't aware of the Pokemon universe, which then I wouldn't know why you're watching this, but basically they keep adding new Pokemon that weren't in the original shows, and if you go back to watch other episodes, they aren't noted in those regions, which, of course, that's understandable. But in the movie, we do see Pokemon from all regions, not just Kanto. We see them from Sinnoh, Hoenn, Johto, Unova, trying to Alola, I think. And then there's all sorts of. There aren't any new Pokemon in the series, but we do get samples of Pokemon from all the other regions that have been established. Like Sorrel has a Lucario, which is probably one of my favorites. Definitely my favorite Smash character. Then Verity has a Piplup. At least I think that's what it's called. The Sinnoh League starter. And then the main villain is actually a reinterpretation of a character established in the first season. The villain of this movie is a character by the name of Cross, and in this universe, he's Ash's Charmander's original trainer, which that was an episode in the original Pokemon, but that was a one-off character, and I'm almost certain that his name wasn't Cross. I could be completely wrong, but again, that was just a one-off character. It's been a long time since I've seen the original show. Actually, it's been a long time since I've seen the show in general. But again, the original characters from the show, with the exception of Ash and his the three Pokemon he has during this movie, the ones I'm drawing, his Pikachu, his Charizard, and his Butterfree, there are no other main characters, with the exception of Team Rocket, which, again, I feel like this is something that's gonna piss a lot of hardcore fans off. Ash actually never meets Team Rocket in this movie, and they're completely pointless. They have a few seconds, probably up to 1 or 2 minutes of actually being in the film, but they never interact with the main characters. They have nothing to do with the plot. And I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of upsetting to me, especially with a movie that focused on seeing all these rare Pokemon and these original villains who were known to be hunting down rare Pokemon. And they would appear every episode, yet in this movie, they're just there. To the point where I feel like they should have just been cut out, if not given any more to do with the plot. Because you really didn't need them. Even if you cut them out, there would not be a problem meeting the runtime, just because of how little involvement they have in the whole movie. And then Brock and Misty, we never see them. And again, there are a lot of good things and a lot of, I won't say bad things, but problems with the film. And starting with the main plot, it starts out fairly strong. The intro starts out, and it's essentially a recap of the first episode where Ash gets Pikachu and starts his adventure. And then after that, it actually skips quite a bit. It goes to the title scene, and then it skips all the way to where Ash obtains the Rainbow Badge, which I believe was his 4th badge. So we completely skipped over the parts with the Pewter City Gym, the Cerulean Gym. That's where he meets Rock and Misty originally. But again, they're not in this film. There's a nod to them and all the other companions. That's basically what I call them, because I'm a Doctor Who fan. That's essentially what they are too. But no. So it actually skips ahead to that point. So there's a lot that isn't involved in this film, which completely understandable. Yeah, I'm serious, Nate. Is there any way to... Sorry, just a quick side note. Is there any way to get the chat to actually pop up in the video screen so that people watching this later on would actually be able to read the chat? I'm sure there is, but I don't know what it is. But anyway, going back, keep getting sidetracked. Sorry about that. Going back, it starts off the main story right after he gets the rainbow badge and heads to the Pokemon Center, where a kid comes in talking about seeing the legendary Pokemon. And then that's where he meets the two new companions, which are Verity and Sorrel. And then the rest of the movie basically just him going along the journey, and he basically, well, honestly, that's it. It's a very simplistic movie, which, not a bad thing by any means. It's Pokemon, which, again, all fairness, it is intended to be a children's show first. I can't go in expecting anything complex like Game of Thrones to happen. But a very simple, straightforward story, fun adventure. And, yeah. This is why I like scripting things first. I don't make an ass out of myself like I am now. But no, it's a very straightforward movie. And that there's a lot of dumb moments in this, which I would expect from a kid's film. So Nate's asking about the Pikachu talking thing. I'll get to that in a few minutes. So I'm going to start talking about the good and the bad. So the good things, one, the movie and the animation is gorgeous. And it's very cinematic animation. What I mean is, there are a lot of gorgeous landscape and panning shots of all these terrains, of these beautiful fields, this gorgeous mountain. And again, the animation is very solid, very fluid. They constantly show battles, Pokemon battles, which, again, they don't always tie into the plots per se, but they are very quick, and it helps actually establish the sense of this world, where the Pokemon battles are just such a huge part of life that we just cut into them happening very fluently and very nonchalantly. And then the acting in the film, for the most part, is very solid. There are, of course, a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but there are a few hokier moments in this. If the stream is having any trouble, please say so in the chat or comment below, because for some reason it's giving me a bad health sign, but the video seems to be playing okay on my end, so I'm unsure. Yeah, I want to get back into this. I haven't been on YouTube streaming for a while. So, anyway, there are a lot of hokier moments, or basically a lot of moments where they flub lines, which I don't necessarily blame the actors in those parts. I blame the writing, where there are a lot of cheesier bad lines they have to read, and I have trouble imagining anyone pulling them off. Like, there's lines about friendship and loyalty, which, not for kids level bad, but probably somewhere around for kids would be a good comparison to the two. Then, again, the animation is very fluent in the battles. It's very epic, very vibrant. It draws your attention great. And then, even in the subtler moments, it's gorgeous to look at. If you're just, there's one scene where a character, I don't want to get in too much for spoilers, but they're just sitting by a lake at night, and it's a beautiful scene to look at because it's animated so nicely. The water effect looks great, the lighting and the colors all very pleasing. But that being said, there are some moments the animation does fail, and that, to be more specific, that would be towards the shots where they use CG, because there is a lot of CG in the film, and the 2D animation don't necessarily meld together properly. And when that happens, it's very noticeable. Like, probably a good comparison would be the movie Titan AE, where that was probably worse, but I give that movie a little more leeway since it was one of the earlier times trying to do that constantly. Where CG has always, well, not always, but since the 80s, I know for a fact, has been integrated with 2D animation, and sometimes it works great, especially when used sparingly. But in this movie, it's used quite frequently, and in a lot of cases, it works perfectly fine. There is a great action scene with an Onyx where they have to meld the CG and 2D animation, and it actually does look very well. But then on other scenes where they're just doing an overhead crane shot panning out of a character on a rocky terrain, it's very clear and noticeable that it is a 2D animated character on a 3D background. And those moments do take you out of it, but not enough to ruin the movie. And then there are a lot of, in terms of writing, like I stated before, it is a very simple plot, very simple story, which is perfectly fine. You don't need some dark, overly convoluted story. Sometimes a very simple, straightforward story works the best, especially if you're using a character-driven film. Such examples like Rocky, that's a very straightforward film, very straightforward story, just nobody boxer training for a heavyweight battle. And that is all the story to that. There's no other plot, no other or the story elements, and what drives that film is the character. And in this film, Ash does drive a story for the most part, as well as the other two characters we follow, Sorrel and Verity. And again, going into that, the story does okay for the most part, but then you get into the elements that feel very tacked on for the purpose of a story targeted towards kids. There has to be a moral, and then there are a lot of dumb moments, which one I'm sure a lot of people heard about by now. There's a moment where, not going to give too much away, but during the climax, Pikachu and Ash are hurt, and they're talking, and then Pikachu actually starts speaking English, which I feel that didn't piss me off as much as everyone else for two reasons. One, Meowth talks. This is actually an established thing in the original series too, where Meowth, one of the members of Team Rocket, is always talking English. So, saying that I took up issue with Pikachu speaking, while I was completely fine with that in the original show, seems a little hypocritical on my end, where I totally understand where people get off not liking that. You're totally allowed to, and it is a dumb moment. But again, going back in, the second reason I did it, it's after Pikachu and Ash were basically injured, and there could be made an argument where it's just Ash imagining it, where it's a concussion-driven illusion. So it's not that Pikachu just starts talking out of nowhere. There is a sort of reason for it happening, and there is plausible deniability that it did actually happen or not. So, again, I don't think that's a huge issue with the film. It's only like a 3-second scene. And again, they even play with the voice to make it more echoey while he's speaking. That helps convey that it's actually a concussion or some sort of hallucination, not Pikachu actually speaking. So that I'll totally ignore that part. You do have the closest the plot comes to any sort of side stories is that Charizard or Charmander and Ash constantly running into Charizard's previous owner, which, again, I feel that's actually an interesting element. In the original show, that was a one-off character. We never saw him again. But here, it does build up this sense of conflict very well without actually forcing too much. And another thing I feel people might be upset about by this film is that during the course, Ash only gets 3 of his Pokemon. Pikachu, his starter, Charmander, and then his Butterfree. So there's no Squirtle or Bulbasaur. I doubt anyone's gonna miss Pidgeotto. That was probably one of the least remembered of his main characters. But again, it's like, I can't remember, but I'm assuming 90-minute film. So having it focus on those few Pokemon did help with the world, did help keep the story self-contained. And overall, it felt like a solid film. The biggest problem I had, and again, this is a serious problem for a film, would have to be the pacing. Where, again, some moments the pacing worked perfectly fine. Like the intro or the prelude to it before the title scene, I thought that was actually paced very strongly, being able to fit a 20-minute episode, boiling it down to its main elements, and then packaging that into a 2-minute prelude, and conveying everything that episode did in the same amount of time, and building on the same emotions that it did. However, there are a lot of times where the pacing is very off and feels very rushed. There's one scene in particular where it's after Ash confronts the villain Cross, Charmander's former owner again, and then he starts doubting himself or doubting his Pokemon. And again, this would usually be some huge character turn moment, and in a way it is, where it enters a dream sequence where he enters a world where there is no Pokemon. Pokemon never existed. And usually that would have been a fairly long scene, something where it's 10 minutes, or establishing how this world would work without Pokemon and his transition back. Or in the television series, that would have been a whole episode, if not a 2-parter. But here, it's done in like 1 or 2 minutes. And it feels very rushed, to the point where it takes you out of the actual movie and feels like it'd be better off without it. And that does sort of play against it, where, again, such a simple plot could be very effective if you focus on the simple plot. And if you do integrate elements like that, you have to put them in very precautiously and make sure they work. But when they're rushed like that, they don't work. Which, some of the slower moments, where the few there are, again, this is an adventure film for kids in about 90 minutes, so naturally you can't be going too fast. But the slower and quieter moments with these characters, they are very atmospheric, they are well paced then, and it feels like a good break from the action. Which, again, a lot of action in this film, a lot of downplayed action, which I feel that's actually very nice to see. But there are a lot of pacing problems, a lot of moments being rushed to either fit the time limit or just to get out of the way, as if it's a conflict with the writers. Let me check this. Which, but aside from that, I had that and some of the clunkier lines of dialogue. I had trouble finding things to strongly dislike. One note to make that I feel would turn some people off: there are a lot of non sequiturs or seemingly pointless scenes, which I personally didn't mind because this movie is about the journey, not the destination sort of storytelling. So seeing these sort of pointless scenes helps build up these characters and build up this world. This isn't an adrenaline rush kind of movie. This is more along the lines, this is probably a poor comparison, but a good one, or a close example, would be the Lord of the Rings films, or more particularly the first Hobbit film, where it's a much slower story, much less happens, but it's a much more sort of relaxed sense of adventure, where it isn't being rushed, there aren't massive stakes involved, and it's sort of a nice change of pace to see, in my opinion, because most adventure films have some huge evil they're combating, or some reason to rush and have to have an adrenaline-filled movie from start to end. But here it's more a sense of being along for the ride, not being there for the entire sort of action sense of this. Which, trying to think of what else to say about the film itself. Again, the voice acting was fairly strong. A nitpick I do have, which, again, this is just a nerdy sort of nitpick for me to have. I would have liked a few more nods to the actual show or the video games, or maybe even the card games, where it's established that in this universe, they're in Kanto, and they're seeking legendary Pokemon. The ones they come across are the Johto Pokemon. And they actually do go into the backstory of how the Sinnoh dogs, Suicune, Raikou, and Entei, actually came into being, and go into the actual lore of the series and the mythos of Pokemon itself, which I thought that was very nice to see. And then they also established that Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos exist in this universe, as do assumingly all the legendary Pokemon. Which I would have enjoyed seeing more sort of nods to the original series. Like, if you saw, when you're in the Pokemon Center, there are other kids or other characters around, it would have been nice to have seen other sort of one-off characters from the show. Not necessarily someone who's a main character or had a heavy presence in the original show, because then it would be distracting. But something like where in the Batman and Harley animated film, they go to that bar, and it's full of henchmen from the actual Batman the Animated Series show. And that was a fun scene because you got to see all these characters that you could recognize, but it wasn't distracting. It wasn't like seeing any of the main villains there and questioning why they were there. But again, that is a nitpick, and we do get to see Pokemon from all other regions. We get to see Hoenn Pokemon, we see Sinnoh Pokemon, we get, I'm assuming, a new Pokemon by the name of Marshadow, if I'm remembering that right. Let me look that up, actually. Yeah, Marshadow, and that might be from the Alolan region. I'm not sure. Yeah, it says Sun and Moon, which I haven't played Sun and Moon too much, to be perfectly honest. I have it, I just... Jeez, I don't even think I've played it for a solid hour yet. I just don't really have the time. Most of my time is spent looking for work, or doing work. And if I do have free time, I will usually spend it drawing and building up a portfolio, which I really have to do now. But yeah, we have Marshadow, who serves sort of as a secondary character, or villain. And actually, thinking back, Marshadow may be more of a villain than just a side character. And it's sort of confusing the more I think about it, because its motivation was not very clear or well established. I guess that could be one note for this film. Just try to build it up more for the villain. Again, that clearly didn't take me out of it too much if I'm just now remembering it. But yeah, that probably was a problem. But yeah, we see Marshadow, so we do see Pokemon from all regions. We get a good sense of the world, of the whole Pokemon mythos as a whole. And again, I feel this is a okay introduction if you want to get someone into Pokemon, but not the best. Where honestly, I would stick to the games. Mostly because everything seems to be in its own universe. Each game, the television series, the multiple spin-offs it has. Actually has quite a few spin-off series. And that's another thing I can actually talk about. From what I could tell, I got there early at the Fathom event, and there were these sort of trailers or promos for 2 other projects, which one was Pokemon Origins, and from what I can tell, that is based more on the video game than the series, where we see the promo it showed was Gary taking on the Elite Four and becoming the Pokemon Grand Master. And then it shows a shadowy figure, assumingly it's Ash, come in to challenge him. So that was for Pokemon Origins, which I believe that's a mini-series coming up, or is already out. And that was actually beautifully animated. I can't say for sure if the actual show has that level of animation, where if it's just a mini-series, it might. But again, I've seen a lot of trailers that are just misleading, so I don't want to say for sure if that's what's going to be. And then there were two more. I'm trying to remember them. Sorry, give me 1 sec. I'm trying to look it up. Another was for Pokemon Generations, where this one was actually pretty interesting, where it just started with the actual Pokemon game intro, and it reminded me a lot like the first episode of the first series, where it shows that, and then it slowly fades into the actual animation from the starting screen. And then that just shows Pikachu in a very original style. I actually do remember seeing his Pikachu visually stand out from all other Pikachus. And it shows him and assumingly Red, if not Ash, go through all the regions. It starts out in Kanto, then Johto, Hoenn, and so on. Then there was one more. I'm trying to remember what it was for. It might have also been for Generations. But it was essentially the Pokemon police, or some form of crime unit, actually looking into Team Rocket and trying to track down Giovanni. Which, that was actually really interesting to see, because it establishes Team Rocket as more of a mafia-style organization. Where, again, in the original show, they are the bad guys, but they're usually played up more for laughs. And this trailer took them very seriously as a sort of crime lord. Where, God, I'm trying to remember what that was. Was that Generations 2? It might have been. Yeah, it was Generations. So, from what I can tell, these videos are still on YouTube. So do check those out, because they are well animated and they're interesting to see. Let's see, what time are we at? 44. Wonder, yeah. That's essentially all I have to say about the film. Where, if I would recommend it, short answer, yes. But, one, you should know what you're getting into. Where, for example, I can't say that a grown adult who, not even like just some random adult, if you're a grown adult, you like anime, you like animation movies and that sort of field, I suppose I can say it's worth checking out. It's not the best. If this is your first thing to get into Pokemon, it's a lot harder to say. I guess this would be a fine introduction to Pokemon if you're trying to get into this world, or trying to learn about this world. Again, it's not the best introduction, but it is a much quicker introduction, given that most other sources are either video games that'll take you 20 to 30 hours, or entire seasons of a TV show. But yeah, it's an okay way to get into this series, or just to get an idea if you would be interested in this series. Kids, I have trouble thinking of kids that won't enjoy this film, though I don't know kids very well. Like, hardcore fans, like I said earlier, hardcore fans will probably be mixed. It's important to note what you're getting into and basically build your expectations around that. Where if you're going in expecting like a sort of shot for shot rendition of Pokemon and being exactly like the source material, you're gonna be disappointed. You have to be very lenient and flexible towards what they do. Where, again, as long as you go in with it, if you're a fan of Pokemon and your mentality is, this looks good, I'll go in with an open mind, then I would recommend it. It's a solid film, all in all. It's one of the better Pokemon movies. I don't know if that's saying much. I would put it in the top 5 easy. And if you're a moderate Pokemon fan, then I definitely recommend it. Because you won't get butthurt like a lot of people probably will. If I know anything about fandoms, there's gonna be a lot of backlash for this film regardless, so... Yeah, I'd say, at the very least, it's worth a rental. I would suggest renting before buying it, though. Unless Black Friday's coming up. I'm sure you can actually probably find it cheap if it's on sale by then. Yeah, I enjoyed this film. I'm glad I was actually able to see it on a theater monitor because it was a very big film. It did show this world a lot. And it was great to be able to see it in such large detail. Which I saw it when it came out on a Sunday or Monday. Trying to remember. Yeah, I believe so. Which, sorry everyone who didn't get to do it that way. That's on me for not saying this earlier, but you probably wouldn't have seen this video till after the Fathom event was over, but again, even if it's just on TV, I think it's still beautiful to look at. And I think it's worth checking out at least once if you're a fan of Pokemon, or even if you're just not like currently following, where that's the sort of boat I'm in. I'm not currently following the series or anything, and I'm barely following the game any, but I went for nostalgia purposes, and I found it enjoyable. I thought it was a good sit. I definitely had fun in it. And again, if you're not an anime fan, if you're either a diehard Pokemon fan, if you're a diehard Pokemon fan, I'll say rent it first, do not buy it. It might be worth checking out, but go in with an open mind and don't be too strict on what to expect from this film. If you're just an anime fan in general, if you don't know anything about Pokemon, if you can enjoy more lighthearted, more kid-centric, or family-friendly scented anime, like something like Totoro or that sort of thing, then I say check it out. If you watch anime for much more a sense of the action or the storytelling elements, then I would say this would not be in your alley. Which, again, Pokemon, I feel that's a given. yeah. Anyway, that's all I really have to say about this. And tomorrow I'm going to try to do another video. If not tomorrow, I will definitely do it Saturday or Sunday, where I will do the opposite. I will have dialogue recorded, which I already have recorded. And I'll be doing a drawing. I'll be covering a request I actually got on DeviantArt. So, and then the next video I'll be discussing Thor Ragnarok and Murder on the Orient Express. Because I've seen those movies back on Tuesday, and I recorded my thoughts on those originally, before I did this. So then I'll be playing that audio over the actual stream of me drawing. And then see how that works. Then Tuesday I'm going to see Justice League, and then do one of the 3 forms of streaming, whichever one I feel works the best. Because I definitely want to get into this. I enjoy actually being able to talk about these things to other people. All 3 of you who watch these videos. Hopefully I do have other friends. Hopefully I can actually bring them into sort of vlog this sort of thing. Because it is actually much more fun to have someone to play off of. And if I have someone to play off of and also talk, I could actually do the drawing and the audio aspects at the same time. But yeah, there are a few movies coming out that I do want to talk about. Nate, if you're still watching this, we have to see Disaster Artists when it comes out. If you haven't seen that trailer, look it up. Tommy Wiseau is making a theatrical film, which I cannot wait for. I may have to see that opening night. Where I'm going to be upset if that isn't an actual widespread release and it's just a select theaters. Because the only movie theater near me that does select screenings or Fathom events, it's about an hour and a half walk away. Because I don't have a car because I can't afford a car. Plus my license expired a while ago, so I have to retake the driving test. But again, that comes out December. And there are just a bunch of movies or shows in general I would enjoy talking about. But again, that's my thoughts. So Pokemon I Choose You, fun movie, good for Pokemon fans. Go see it. I feel like the dialogue will be better for next time just because I can't really speed up the video for this the way I have it running. So yeah, Christ, I gotta start getting ready for work. I work nights. But again, thanks for joining me. Thanks for checking this out. If you're checking this video out afterwards, after the stream, leave a comment below on what you thought of the movie or what you're looking forward to seeing. If there's anything else you want me to talk about or want me to draw, please tell me in the links below or message me on one of my sites. Because I'm always looking for other things to draw, other things to see. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah, the video, that's good enough. It's close enough to the end. Anyway, I'm gonna take off. Thanks for joining me in this. I'll put a link to the I actually have to do more work into this drawing still. I have the line work and I have the coloring down, but I still have to add the shading. I have to figure something out for the background. Possibly add some textures. I'm unsure. Yeah. Oh yeah. Check out my other work. Thanks for joining me. I'll catch you all next time. Take care.